Episode 3 came with a lot of balancing that definitely changed how our meta functions, but one topic that people haven't really talked about yet is the operator. What's going on, ProGuides family? It's your host Sergeant Frost, and today we're going to talk about the gun that might be making a big comeback into the meta, the operator. For the longest time, people have sort of questioned whether the operator was still good or if the gun was underpowered. But with recent changes in price and balancing surrounding agent abilities, the pieces might be set in place for the operator to become meta moving forward. Speaking of the meta, with all these changes right now live on the servers and the new episode bringing along its own rank reset, some of you may feel hesitant or lost in this emerging meta. That's why we suggest you visit our website, ProGuides.com, where our Radiant and Immortal level coaches are more than happy to get you up to speed or even get a leg up on the competition entering episode 3. Additionally, we have courses made by pro players like Sentinels 10s and Team Liquid Scream that will definitely improve your fundamentals and knowledge of the game. So if any of this interests you, make sure to come check us out. The first reason we're going to talk about the resurgence of the operator actually has nothing to do with its price, but more about how the meta is shifting. If anything, price will be less of a driving force for why the operator will become meta specifically, but it definitely can contribute. However, the main thing that will make the operator strong again is KAYO'S release, and toning down the utility abundance in-game. Of course, we have to first say that this is based on our predictions on how the meta will turn out in episode 3, since there's not a lot of testing that has been done yet with the new agents, and pro matches for this new patch haven't been played yet. It will have to be seen whether the meta will turn out the way we're describing. However, we think there are significant theoretical reasons why the meta will turn out this way. While these considerations are more for the professional meta and how teams will play at the top levels, many of these reasons we list today will actually affect your rank gameplay, as much of what is making the operator stronger will become more pronounced in relation to the uncoordinated and puggy nature of rank matches. So, even if these points don't specifically point to how rank games typically play out, they will affect how rank games are approached from an individual standpoint nonetheless. So, let's jump right in. If you guys have played since episode 3 started, I'm sure you've experienced the dread and helplessness you felt when KAYO'S suppression knife hits you, or when he supercharges his ultimate and ruins your sight hold plan completely. KAYO'S release does exactly what you think, which is force people to rely more on gunplay. But this in itself isn't what makes AWPing strong, but the resulting playstyle surrounding it. One thing to note here is what KAYO'S suppression ability does is it makes sight takes more potent, and it either forces the defenders to stand their ground utility-less or find other ways to work around it, such as playing retake or setting up to avoid KAYO'S suppression as the agent with utility on sight. For example, Cypher and Killjoy players may opt to play a more passive rotator position rather than on sight, because KAYO'S suppression would cancel all utility if they get suppressed. Another strategy to counter some execute-heavy teams is to break up their setup before they can even start, by taking aggressive angles or trying to pick off important members of the ensuing execute. In both of these cases, the operator can play a key role. Let me explain. But first, we have our question of the day. Today's question is, how are your first impressions with KAYO now that episode 3 is live? Personally, I've really enjoyed playing him, and I think his suppression blade is somewhat overtuned with how well it cancels out sight defenses. Since its radius is so big, I've been nullifying whole sight setups on A site on Icebox by throwing a suppression knife into Nest, and then I proceed to suppress the sad and angry Killjoy defending it. But let us know what you guys think. We would love to hear your first impressions of KAYO in the comment section down below. Now, let's jump right back into the video. Now, before you guys notice the disparity here with the operator and retaking, yes, the operator is conventionally a weak gun in retake situations. But before we blindly believe that characterization, we need to understand why it's weak before we can figure out why it might not apply to this new meta. First of all, the operator is weak at clearing angles at close to mid-range, because it's much slower and also much riskier to field against utility in retake situations. If you're ever stuck in a retake scenario where multiple attackers are still on site and utility is all over the place, you'll have a hard time taking the operator and breaking the setup apart. This is definitely true, and if you guys are concerned for that reason, you're 100% correct. But that's one side of how retakes work, when a utility war is causing an operator to be unable to operate at peak performance. But let's consider what happens if the site players have no utility, or if they are playing the infamous post-plant strategies that have been meta for the past few months. First of all, if they have no utility, retaking will be a matter of flushing them out and holding for their peaks because they lack utility to stall. This is a great spot for operators, because your teammates can just force an enemy out with utility and you either pick them off swinging or hold another part of the site to kill his teammates. And if they are playing full post-plant and passive positions, then you can enter a site and hold deep when they peek the spike diffuser. This is also a great position for operators. So how can this sort of situation become common in the new meta? Once again, the answer is KAYO. Even on the defender side, KAYO'S suppression abilities introduce a unique threat to post plants, because suppression will make site holds a lot more dangerous when you can't use any utility to stall. As such, KAYO'S suppression will force situations where either attackers on site in a post plant will have no utility, or force them to play backed up where they are playing for the spike defusal and trying to stall there. In either case, the operator has a big advantage in shutting down the attackers during a retake. So, on retakes, the operator is actually much stronger than before with KAYO in the mix. The other strategy that people can do to counter side executes is to play aggressive angles to pick off enemies before the side execute even happens, and then play man advantages or make a side execute extremely awkward due to lack of utility. Once again, this is where the operator has a chance to shine. Even before these changes, many people might have noticed how the operator is very strong for this exact reason on maps like Icebox, where the site itself is exceptionally hard to hold against attackers. If your experience with Icebox is like mine, most ranked Icebox games consist of taking a site over and over if they can't stop us for the first time. Because of this, many players have resorted to using the operator and taking aggressive angles at pipe or rafters to break down the site take before it gets out of hand. With how scary KAYO'S suppression is for taking control or going for a site execute, this playstyle might become the norm for most maps, making the operator a go-to for defenders to make early round picks. Not only that, but being able to take aggressive control will be crucial to sniff out a site take before it's too late, so the operator also provides an interesting level of support for that as well. Operators are very strong for holding angles down, so on defense, an operator can take a long sight line and hold for peaks while their teammates can push into deeper positions or take a more aggressive fight. As such, the operator has very good versatility for that game plan as well. With those points being said, that also gives the operator on the attacker side more leverage and more usability as well. Considering how the operator is weakest in terms of trying to clear angles or just peak angles, attackers have had issues finding good ways to leverage an operator's strengths. But considering how the meta might turn out with more post-plant defenses, the operator might have some new and more consistent uses. First of all, the operator might be a good deep aggression tool in post-plant situations. Once a site is taken, the operator can act as a powerful tool to lock down deeper positions on defenders. In the past, this posed a considerable risk beforehand, because taking a site would be riskier, and an operator could become a liability when the execute is hairy. However, with KAYO'S effect on site takes, this could easily become less of an issue. Second, the operator will be strong to defend against spike defuse attempts because the time to kill is significantly quicker at mid to long ranges compared to the Vandal or Phantom. This means that you put yourself in an easier position to pick an enemy off when you know exactly where he will be at, which is on the spike. Also, since some teams may favor playing aggressively to break apart defaults or setups early to prevent strong executes, the attackers could benefit from having an operator to deny information or counter aggressive peaks for control. In the past, this was not as necessary, since utility from characters like Sentinels would make site holds a lot more viable. But now, it seems like KAYO is a Sentinel killer that makes the playstyle much riskier. One other factor that has made the operator a significantly weaker weapon in a lot of situations is due to the abundance of utility in the game. Since the operator has much less mobility, utility that pushes a player away is much harder to retake with an operator. As such, holding for peaks becomes very dangerous since each angle can be bombarded by utility, and you can be chased away with how much utility can be used in the game in the form of flashes and cheap utility. Now that episode 3 has introduced a host of changes relating to more expensive utility and the increasing of price for flashes for some flash agents, it's a lot more viable for the operator on a round-to-round basis to find gaps where they can lock down an angle without randomly getting cleared by utility. The new changes to prices affects the game in a way that lowers the amount of utility available, but also functions in a way to force players to think more critically about how they want to use their utility. So, for the case of playing against an operator, players need to be much more diligent of where operators are or else they will be punished. This doesn't mean that the operator has no counterplay, because there is still more than enough utility to sniff out a sniper. But it's no longer as efficient to use just utility to clear out every corner possible, since you'll run out of it much faster. Which also means as an operator player, you have much more chances to catch players dry peeking angles if you know where to find them. Don't forget that the economic changes have also done some favors for the operator. Now, we all know that the operator itself got a price decrease from 5,000 to 4,700 credits, which is already a great sign for operator players. But even more than that, we should also consider how the other guns have mostly gotten cheaper as well. So even in force rounds or lower econ rounds, you're saving more money by virtue of having cheaper guns in the mix. So instead of just being 300 credits cheaper, you can save up for those guns faster while still playing along with your team's economic decisions. While this doesn't make the operator a cheap purchase by any means, this just makes the players' lives easier in terms of fielding the sniper cannon in matches. Of course, we also have to consider how price increases to abilities might affect how well you can save. But if we think about how a person would be saving to build econ, buying abilities is often considered after buying a gun. So if you can't just buy a gun, you're saving up faster. And on the side of utility being more expensive, we have to state once again that the economic changes to utility is so that enemies are much less capable of purchasing at every round regardless of the situation, and thus makes your life as an AWPer much easier over the course of a game. With all these changes added together, it seems like the operator is in the best spot it's ever been since the nerfs back in episode 1. Whether it's to become aware of its potential or for you to make the decision to start picking up the operator more often, we hope this video was helpful in expanding how the operator's role in the meta might become stronger. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this type of video, feel free to drop us a like and subscribe if you want to keep up to date with the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides. Also, don't forget to check out our website ProGuides.com to stay ahead of the competition with truly amazing on-demand coaching. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, and good luck on the grind, ProGuides family.